Hi, everybody. Welcome to Game Changer Chats. I'm Tevis, and I'm so thrilled you are here. I started this series really because I figured we all need more stories about people who are building amazing lives predicated on being themselves. In celebration of the book I wrote, The Game Changers Chat, or The Game Changers Guide to Radical Success, I've been teaching a lot of high performers how to inject a lot more of themselves into the lives they've built, both for greater impact and for greater satisfaction. So the folks I bring on this show are people who strike me as having done a lot of that along the course of their lives. And so today I am so thrilled to have with me Dr. Kien Vuu, and I'm going to call him Kien because I feel like I know him that way already. So before we dive in with Kien, I'm going to give you just a tech check-in, and the tech check-in is a couple things. We are simulcasting over LinkedIn Live, 2 places on Facebook and YouTube. There is a chat on all of them. If you chat and we do not answer you, it is not because we're mean people or because we don't want to. We actually do want to encourage live participation. So it basically means that for whatever reason, our live stream is not grabbing that chat in that moment. So Kien and I both solemnly swear that after the broadcast, we will circle back on all the platforms and look at questions or comments and make sure that you get the attention that we would love to give you real time. So without further ado, I am here to share with you Dr. Kien Vuu. Thank you so much for being here, Kien.
Thank you so much for having me on the show, Tevis. I really enjoy the premise of what the show is all about, is really just to share our human stories and our authenticity, because truly, at least in my life, coming back to that has been my medicine.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. We all think it's about the should, or we think it's about the goalpost, but it's actually turning back to who we truly are, which is the premise of radical success. So I'm going to take you, we're going to hop in a little time capsule, and we're going to go back to your youngest memories, which I know there's a whole story behind, but we're going to start with the simplest thing.
Mhm.
And that is, what was fun for you as a young one? What made your heart happy as a young one?
Believe it or not, I would spend hours, hours in front of a mirror doing voices, impressions, telling stories. I could just, entertain myself.
Really?
All my parents needed to do was to hand me a mirror and I'd be set. So yeah, that was something I really enjoyed doing. And
That's like a puppy. You can put a puppy in front of a mirror. Right. Well, so that was really good preparation for the life that you're living now. I mean, we're going to fill people in on everything that's happened in between, but it's obvious we both have our books behind us. You've become a published author. From what I understand, you're a major voice in the very Tony world of epigenetics, which we may have to have you explain exactly what that means, because I'm sure some folks are familiar, but I'm also sure that some folks could use some help with. So let's go back before we dive into just what it's like to have a Hollywood Rolodex of people with lots of money paying you to do what you do every day. Let's go back to your beginnings, right? How did your life unfold?
Well, I was actually born to Chinese immigrants. My parents are both Chinese. My grandparents immigrated from China to Vietnam because of the war. And my parents were born there. They were persecuted against, but I was also born there. I was born there in 1978. I'm going to date myself now. And this was 3
I'm
years
so
after.
much older than you. Like I'm your elder. So you should call me ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. So after the Vietnam War, the communists had really sieged all the businesses. there, and my parents thought there was going to be basically no future for their unborn child, and so they had tried to escape. And in fact, the first time they tried to escape, it was in the middle of the night on a small boat. They got caught, and so my dad was thrown into re-education prison, and my mother was forced to entertain. My pregnant mother, pregnant with me, was forced to entertain the troops, communist troops. She was a singer, and a pharmacist, and she was forced to entertain. And when they finally let my dad out, I was a couple months old, and they said, there's no way in hell that we're going to be here in this country. And so they fled again. This time they were successful. We boarded a refugee boat that actually went over to the Philippines, and there was no room in the Philippine refugee camp. And so we were actually on that boat for 8 months. So this boat was crammed. It was over 2,000 refugees. We were crammed like sardines. I nearly died of dysentery, become the only infant to survive. We were going through pictures. I don't know if that's something.
I'm going to pull them up right now. So before I pull these up, I want to say to everyone, the reason that Kien and I want to share these pictures is it's this weird thing. You hear these stories and you see this shiny, amazing guy in front of you, and you see his book and you see his energy and his physique, and it's so easy to hear about someone else's, traumatic experiences, challenges or suffering, and go, oh, well, yeah. But there's something really powerful about actually seeing it. And so when Kien sent these to me, I made a decision that we were going to share them, because it's not the kind of thing that you can poo-poo. When you look at this boat, now this is the boat that you guys lived on for 8 months, correct?
Right. It's called a Tang'an. You could probably see it on the side there. And people ask me, how did you get, did you guys take selfies or something on the boat? Well, that's not the case. There was actually a group of journalists that documented basically the fall of Vietnam and all the refugees fleeing. And this is actually a part of an anthology collection of this period of history. And when we looked at these pictures, the Tang'an was actually the boat that we were on. And you'll see the picture of the boat on the outside, and I think you also have a picture of the boat on the inside, just to see what those conditions were like.
Yeah, let me get the boat on the inside. Hang on.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah.
So you could see we were all crammed. It was very poor sanitation. I was told that we were actually, stationed right next to the restroom. And I got really popular on the boat because I was, probably one of the few infants, again, the only infant that survived. But anytime somebody walked through to try to get to the restroom, they would pass by my family and say hi to baby Kien. But that was it. We spent 8 months on that boat, another 3 months in a Philippine refugee camp. And then we were sponsored to Los Angeles by a Catholic church.
Oh, wow.
And you would, yeah, go ahead.
So when you see these pictures, do you have conscious memories or just the stories that your family has told you?
Yeah, I don't have any conscious memories, but there are, a lot of stories that both my aunts and uncles, grandparents were on different boats, and they all came to America by different means, and they all had very similar stories of their childhood. And here's the other thing too: there's a lot of generational things. There are times I stop myself and I say, why am I so paranoid? Why do I always think something bad might happen? And there's a thing that we could probably go into a little bit later on called, generational epigenetics and passing on of some of those things. Because my mom, as this Chinese immigrant growing up in Vietnam, was constantly persecuted against, and because of the wartime that was happening there, she was always on the lookout. She was the eldest of 8 children that always had to, watch everybody. And there'd be times now that I find her get overly paranoid. I'm like, Mom, we're actually safe. And I would catch myself feeling that way. So I don't have any, conscious memories of it. But sometimes when I look at, why I respond to things a certain way, whether it be too paranoid or fearful, I know where that's coming from. And I have to do the deep work to do some of that healing.
Yeah. So I love to hear a dude a buff dude talk about the deep work and doing healing, right?
Yeah.
because because I feel like a lot of times that's the purview of the feminine, right?
Mhm.
This idea of healing trauma, or this idea of suffering because of who you are.
Yeah.
And right now there's obviously a lot of anxiety on
Mhm.
the planet, no matter what skin you happen to be in. But
Yeah.
if the skin you happen to be in happens to be Asian or Black or fill in the blank, there's a whole other set of risks and dangers and vulnerabilities just
Yes.
around being a human being. And so I'm curious, how has this resurgence of vulnerability because of the skin you're in,
Yeah.
because of the culture that you're from, how has that played out for you as an Asian person?
Well, now I definitely have more tools to be able to handle it, which was different because I have to say that a lot of the hate and a lot of the racism, I went through all that as a child. Now I see our elders and our most vulnerable be hurt. It breaks my heart, and I do feel anger. I do feel some rage, but I have tools now. I have meditation. I have qigong. I have
Mhm.
breath work. I have journaling, so I could rechannel some of those energies and not react. And here's the great thing is I recognize that going through what I went through in my life to be able to heal some of the chronic diseases that I've healed. Now it's really the time for me to be able to share those stories.
Yeah.
So, but it brings up a lot of memories. When I was a child growing up, you would figure, hey, you know what? This kid survived 8 months on a refugee boat here in America, land of opportunity. He should be very grateful. But that wasn't the case. When I was young, we were certainly very poor, and I got bused to a more affluent area of school. And being probably one of the only Asian kids in that school, I was constantly being bullied, being called chink, being told to go back to my own home country. You know, People make fun of the holes in my hand-me-down clothes or the stinky food my mom made me take to school. And so there was that feeling of, because of the color of my skin, because of who I was less than. And I really internalized that. And here's the thing: sometimes we shoot for all these extra additional things to make up for the lack that we feel inside. And that was basically the course of, I would probably say, the first 3 decades of my life. Because I was feeling not enough. I always thought that I needed something more to hide that not enoughness for me. And so I'd actually wanted to be an actor when I was a kid. Like I said, I enjoyed being in front of a mirror. I didn't end up choosing that path because mom said, Kien, you have 3 choices, and that's a doctor, an MD, or a physician.
What?
So I went to medical school.
Oh
But
my God, that's like the stereotypical tiger mom, right?
right, right. But very blessed. But here's the thing that I used my white coat. I mean, yes, I wanted to help people, but I really used that white coat to cover that not enoughness I had inside. And I
Mm.
was constantly chasing something outside of myself, chasing success to fill up this not enoughness. And here's the thing: if you don't heal what's inside, you'll constantly want to chase what's going on the outside. And for me, it was the bank account, it was the house, it was the car, all these things, when really the deep down work still wasn't healed. And
That's
here's the
so
thing: when
true.
you don't get to be who you are, when you don't get to love yourself in that way, you start developing stress inside of your body. Now, that stress raises inflammation and will decrease immunity, but that
Mhm.
stress might also, lead you to have bad habits like not eat well, not sleep well, not move, not exercise, not watch for your stress levels. And that really paints the whole biological and physiological response of getting chronic disease, which is why, a conventionally trained medical doctor who has trained at UCLA, UC San Diego, the National Institutes of Health, Howard Hughes Medical Institute. That's why 5 years ago I was overweight, I was diabetic, I was hypertensive, and underneath the white coat I felt like a fraud, and I was taking all these prescription medications. And so it wasn't until a few things that happened to me, a pretty pivotal year of my life that I looked at my life and said, this is not right, and I need to do the deep work. And that's why you say, you know, the guy who has it all together, the buff guy, does the deep work, because we all need that.
Well, I think it's this syndrome that we all have, right? That when someone else looks like they have it all together, we automatically think it must have been easy for them. Point one. Point two, if it's been hard for them, then whatever difficulties we face, right?
Mm.
And I see this a lot with the corporate executives I work with. Like, I work with senior executives and high performers who also feel like frauds. Like, whether or not, whatever color skin they have, whatever family life they come from, like it seems to me that there's a lot of strategy in our minds around throwing up a barrier
Yeah.
to just asking ourselves the most simple question: is there really room for me in my own life?
Yeah, that's a great question. And one of the things I find so healing these days is I'm a recent, you know, new dad. And,
Oh,
you know, yeah, my daughter Kaya was born January 21st of this year.
yeah.
And it's been beautiful to watch her grow up. But there was one incident in particular that I'll just share a quick story. You know, my partner is, you know, a little bit older, and they had suggested that, you know, we shouldn't, you know, we should probably induce if the baby doesn't come out by 39 weeks. And that's what we ended up doing. And we thought that this was going to be a very normal, natural, type of induction. We wanted a vaginal birth, but as the induction started, the baby's heartbeat, you know, wasn't able to be found, and
Oh,
we were told that we weren't prepared for this, that we needed to go for an emergency C-section. And so we went ahead and we did the C-section. Baby came out. We saw baby, but baby looked really blue, and I went off to cut her cord. And you see pictures of me, like, you know, being a really proud dad cutting her cord, but then she stopped moving and she started to
oh,
turn more blue. And then I see her oxygen saturations just like dip down. And they said, we need to take her to the ICU now. And I remember, you know, escorting her to the ICU. And when I held her in my arms for the first time, she had a tube down her nose, a tube down her mouth. She got this IV in her arm, and her poor feet were just constantly poked, and you see blood and marks on her foot. And I was really scared. It turns out the cord was tied around her neck, and she wasn't getting any oxygen.
yeah.
And, you know, here I was thinking, did we do the right thing to try to induce? Did, you know, are these the right doctors? What if she has some kind of neurological deficit because she didn't get enough oxygen? And then I finally paused when I held her in my arms with all of the tubes and stuff like that in her. And I looked at her and I said, wow, you know what? It doesn't matter actually how she turns out. Like, to me, she is just so perfect
Mm,
and automatically deserving of my love. And she's pure love.
mm.
And why was it so healing for me? Because, you know, throughout my entire life, I looked at myself not thinking that I deserved to be loved because I didn't have X, Y, or Z.
Ah,
And that was just not the case. And when I just saw her, I said, no, that's not it. We are just so blessed to enter this world. And because we did enter this world, our birthright is to be loved. And yes, we are all enough.
oh my
And
God, I gotta high five you. I'm like totally, I'm all over that. We just wrapped up a mastermind with some participants, and one of the major practices was actually breathing into the fact that you are being supported on the planet,
yeah,
you are being fed by air, right? And you are being embraced by space, no matter who you are, good day, bad day, skin color, gender preference, right? Any of that. And this birthright of validity, that you are valid because you are. It's that I amness
mm-hmm,
that I think is so, it's so beautiful to talk to you about your struggle. And it's beautiful to hear this awakening that happened because of your daughter. Because hopefully it prompts all of us to go, well, God, do I give myself that permission to be exactly as I am?
yeah. And as
Beyond
we tap
title.
into that, as we tap
Yeah,
into that energy is really what our cells need to hear. in order to perform at its best. You know, my cells were basically, my body was thinking, I am in danger. We are in stress mode, and it turns on the stress response. And guess what? The stress response extended over a period of time. That's what leads to symptoms like brain fog, pain, abdominal pain, joint aches, and it also leads to chronic disease. You know, and that's where I found myself. But fortunately, you know, was able to do deep work to change my physical habits, and then change the deeper habits of emotion, of how I think even. And with those new tools, just really become me, which is, you know, tapping back into our power to heal.
Well, I'm not gonna let you off the hook so easily, right? Because I hear, oh, chronic disease and blah, blah, blah. And then I realized I had to heal, right? Because the mind-body connection, thank God for Dr. John Sarno, because he did amazing things with looking at the causality in trauma and embedded beliefs on our emotional function, immune function, etc.,
Yes.
cognitive function, everything. Now, here's what I really want to ask you. Here you are, this tiger mom, survivor child, refugee kid who's overcome amazing odds, who's been made fun of, and you decide you're going to make it because you're going to prove it to all of them, right? When your house of cards fell apart, because here's what I love, right? I love that all those skills that you amassed over the years to cope and to be amazing and to excel are still present for you now, only you are actually added to your own formula.
Exactly. That's the beauty of it. I mean, you know,
So you know both. Yeah.
we all come up with basically, you know, these skill sets, you know, from our childhood traumas. And the thing is, it's not once we start to awaken to ourselves, we lose any of that. We still carry all of that, but just now we are more conscious about how we use that. And for me, it was maybe a personality. Maybe it was, you know, my drive to want to do something. And now I am more in touch with who I am as a person, what my purpose really is, and I get to carry all those skills that you know came from pain, but I get to use them for my own gift to what I want to give to the world, right?
Okay, but what had you have that epiphany rather than going, well, I just need another pill, I need another, like, what made you shift from, I'm going to try and make all these symptoms go away, as opposed to saying, there's something deeper here that
Yeah.
needs addressing? Like what, because you're in an industry that likes to say, oh, here's this shiny pill that's going to make everything feel better.
Yeah.
Right?
No, you're completely right. And
So how did you do that? And what happened?
well, so, you know, I don't think we never talked about what kind of doctor I was. So I was trained as an interventional radiologist, which is basically a phrase that says I'm a minimally invasive surgeon that uses radiology or medical imaging to do minimally invasive procedures. And so I did all these high-tech procedures on people with end-stage diabetes, end-stage heart disease, renal disease, cancer. So I really knew, you know, people called me in to basically, you know, do these like band-aid type procedures at the end of life or when things weren't going very well. So I knew what was down the road if I didn't address the upstate, you know, the earlier signs of the disease. And when I got it, I said, okay, yes, I was on prescription medicines. I could continue this route or I find a new route. And I wasn't willing to accept that I'm going to end up on my own operating table because I did nothing.
Oh, geez.
There was just so much that happened that one year. It was, you know, there were several things. It was like I lost a close uncle to cancer, and I was really not connected with my family then. You know, I was dating somebody that I thought, you know, I was going to marry, but, you know, I was so busy, wrapped up in trying to be successful in this new career. I neglected my relationships. She left me for another man. I needed shoulder surgery, and I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do surgery anymore. It was all those things that happened within the course of the year. Yes, universe, I got the picture.
You know, but that's oh God, I love it when nothing is working.
Yeah.
Because when nothing is working, you've got this huge opportunity to wake up. You've got this huge,
Yeah.
and then things start working again, and you kind of go back to sleep a little bit. Like you got the gift of, hey, buddy, nothing's gonna work.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
and like Ram Dass says, it is our struggles that is the sandpaper for our awakening. So
Rest for the mill.
when you start to feel like that's the case, then it's really in those times that you start to say, okay, maybe how I was living life, maybe how I was approaching life is not the right way to do it, right?
I got my boy right here.
We're definitely kindred spirits, right? Yeah.
We are. So Kien, like, thank goodness, because otherwise you'd probably be on a lot more pills, and the immune function dysfunction would be persisting.
Yeah.
When you think about the gift of all of this, right? You, like, even if you had never fled Vietnam, being a kid of Chinese parents in Vietnam
Mhm.
would have brought its own probably
Yeah.
struggles.
Yeah.
When you think about what is the most formative aspect of what you came into this lifetime with, what do you think it is?
Could you ask that a different way?
The thing that's influenced you most. Like if you had to say this one aspect of my life
Hmm.
is really what has defined me. And I know that all of us are a puzzle and a mosaic and everything. I'm just saying, like if you had to choose one aspect that has happened to you through this lifetime, what's it
Okay.
then?
Well, I would probably say it's actually after I've healed a lot of the, physical aspects of me. And it's really being in a partner relationship with my current fiance, as well as being a new dad. Um, you know, it is, I'm going to, admit to everybody in the audience, it wasn't easy being with my partner. We both have childhood traumas that showed up a certain way that we gave to each other, and that was very damaging initially. But just to be able to be in it, stick with it, start to be able to see and understand, and being able to see the innocence of the other person and still show up with love, that has been the most rapid part of growth that has happened in my life, more than any of the physical healing that I did. And certainly, my daughter, and watching her grow up is has been amazing. I'm also gifted with a bonus daughter. My partner has a 7-year-old daughter who moved in with me last year during the time of the pandemic. And I actually, humbling story, when I sold my dream house and I moved, into, a place that basically much smaller. There's security bars, all throughout the house. I'm living in it now. I can show you some security bars if you want. There's liquor store down the end of the block. And I was really ashamed of myself, thinking, I'm introducing a new family into this life. I was really ashamed of the house. And Kira is her name. When she first moved in here, she was ecstatic because she never had a house before. She never had a Porsche before. This house that I was ashamed of, she met with gratitude. And just being able to see that response, being able to be in these deep relationships where I can choose to be a better version of myself, and not choose ego and choose love each time, has been very healing. To be able to see the joy of a child, and how she's curious about things, and how she at this precious age just feels really good about herself. Being able to go through all that experience, those have been most healing. So I mean, you could say what has been most formative. It's the experience I get to go through now.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
It because it brings it all full circle.
Yeah.
So the work that you're doing, I mean, you're still a clinician, and from what I understand, you are involved in epigenetics. I'm back to that word. It keeps coming up. Um, what all are you doing? Because I'd love for people to have a sense of how you're functioning on the planet, aside from all the healing that you're doing of your own heart through
Yeah.
these relationships. How are you coming into action on the
Yeah.
planet?
Well, great question. I still teach as a professor of interventional radiology at UCLA, and so 2 days a week I am still performing surgeries. I still feel like there is a place for modern medicine, and there's a place for actually lots of different types of healing, that we should not just use one tool in the toolbox. If somebody comes in bleeding from a car accident, we need to be able to go into their artery, stop that bleeding right away. That's what I used to do.
Oh yeah.
So we need modern medical care. There's a place for it, particularly in acute conditions. But because I've been able to kind of cure myself from a chronic condition I was starting to get, and here's the thing: when I started to heal myself of diabetes and high blood pressure, not only can I say that I healed myself of those things, I am fitter, stronger, smarter, faster, more joyous, and have more compassion than I ever before in my life. I feel like a superhero version of myself. And so that's why I started my concierge practice. And just like you, I work with, high achievers, C-suite executives, a lot of celebrities in the LA area, to work on basically some of those lifestyle things to change how their cells respond. Our cells are constantly being told, and there's two major pathways our cells take. Where if they're in optimal health, we receive longevity, peak performance, and a great immune system. When those cells are not functioning optimally, that puts us in position to get all the symptoms I was talking about, as well as chronic disease. And so what determines whether or not we are in optimal health or not? Well, that's what I talk about in my book, Thrive State, and that's what epigenetics is. Epigenetics tells us that our cells are not defined by the DNA it gets. That's the ACTG, that sequence, that pair that we get from our parents, one from mom, one from dad. And that only makes up about 10 to 15% of who we are as people. Like your eye color or how tall you might be. Like, I'm not going to suddenly be an African-American person, because of that DNA. However, there are traits of our metabolism, how well we burn in fat, whether or not, our cells are in the thrive state. All those things are actually epigenetic, meaning epi meaning above the gene. So all the energies that are above the genes actually dictate how our DNA behaves, and whether our cells are in the thrive state or whether they're in the stress and survive state. And so,
well, you are preaching to the choir, mister. I got to tell you, I am such a fan of this idea, because part of what I love about this is not only that there is so much about our choices that really can dictate outcome, but that the two are in dialogue, right? Our genes are in dialogue with our choices.
yes.
And so gosh, I had the the thing I guess I'd like people to know is, if they are interested in this, because that you come at this from the gravitas of being an MD, it really helps lend a lot of credibility to the idea that this is not just woo woo. This is not just eat your vegetables, right? It's not just, oh, it's a good idea to meditate. Oh, but I don't have time for it. Like, this is literally, this is 101. This is actually your first job, right? And so that you can speak to that as a scientist, I really, really, really appreciate. So if folks want to find you, if they want to bring you into their company, if they want to read your book or do a study group, how do they find you?
Yeah, so you could find out more about me at my website, kienvuu.com. You can see the spelling there, KIENVUU.com. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, TikTok, all these
Everywhere.
different platforms.
TikTok, what?
I
All the kids are doing it. Well, so I want to thank you because I think it's super exciting and super convergent with the work I do. If you guys want to bring more self straight up into your amazing career, kicking butt, doing whatever you do, please reach out to me. I would love it if you would like and share and comment on this. A lot of you guys like email me separately, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know you were watching. So please take a moment and comment. You can get a free chapter of my book if you email me, Tevis at Balance Integration. I'll send you a free chapter. And meanwhile, oh my God, next week, if you think this guy's amazing, I always say this, Kien, don't take it personally. I'm always excited. The guy coming next week is the author of Wait, this is amazing. My friend Michael Shine wrote the Hype Handbook. It's gotten 8 zillion amazing reviews. 12 indispensable success secrets. This he basically studied hucksters. He studied liars and manipulators. Does that sound familiar? He studied them throughout history to figure out how they do what they do, so we can both be smarter in coexisting with them, and also so that we can learn from how they do it and use it for good. So join me. That'll be next week. Kien, it is such a pleasure to share this moment with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Tevis.
Okay, until next week.